Hi friends, welcome to my channel again. This is Bobby Bogdan. We're in Cypress Grove Cemetery in New Orleans, and we're in a neighborhood nicknamed Cities of the Dead because most of the graveyards are in this neighborhood. I'll explain a few things why we have these tall graves. I'll just give you a hint. It's two reasons. One of them has to do with the fact of that the city, most of the city, about 80% of our city's surface is below sea level. We have a lot of hurricanes, and we tend to flood during these hurricanes. We don't want the waters to basically bubble up from the ground, come and basically desecrate those dead bodies 6 feet under. So we don't bury 6 feet under for the most part here in New Orleans. We bury in above graves like you see this one here. There's a second reason. Each one of these graves has a couple of vaults. There's a vault from about here to about here, about this height here, called the oven. There's a concrete slab inside cutting across, separating the oven from the cave downstairs, the cave being the chamber here. Cave and oven, we call them that because of different temperatures. Heat naturally rises to the top, so in our summer months the oven can get up to 300 Fahrenheit. So with our heat and humidity, it gets that hot, and it basically bakes that body. After about a year, all you will have left in that oven is just some charred bones, some ashes, maybe a little clothing around all of that, and some dried up red blood all the way in the back of the coffin. Set your oven for 300 Fahrenheit and put a turkey inside it and leave it alone for 3 days. Only for 3 days, see what happens. But these bake here, these bodies bake here for an entire year. So if any one of these families has a second person to die, let's say 5 years later, they'll hire a contractor who's going to come and unscrew all of these screws that you see here. Take this front tablet, set it aside very carefully so that they don't break it, because they're going to reuse it. And on the back side of this tablet, on the other side, there's a brick wall about this thick. This contractor will come with a big sledgehammer, break through that brick wall, take the coffin out and reopen it, clean it up, break all those, or crush all those brittle bones. They're very brittle by now. Crush them into small shards around this size. Take all those shards, place them inside a small urn, an urn only about this, well, about this size over here. But you take that urn, you put it downstairs in the cave. Hundreds of these urns can fit one next to the other in these caves, in these chambers downstairs. So it's a very efficient system. With this system here in New Orleans, you can bury not only your immediate family, but generation after generation of your entire clan. People related to you from 200 years ago, grandma, grandpa, uncles, cousins. A very, very efficient system, and that's why you see so many of these names on our graves. On this one, I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 names here. But that doesn't mean that only 10 people are buried here. Sometimes families give up writing new names. They know who's buried there, they know what grandma and grandpa are buried there. They simply give up writing new names. Sometimes they put plaques on the side, not in this case, but they have a list at home anyway. The average number of people buried per grave in this cemetery in Cypress Grove is 27. On this grave here, right next to the first one I showed you, on this grave, you can actually see that concrete slab. Somebody desecrated this grave, and you can see that brick wall that's supposed to be underneath that front plaque, but this one is missing that front plaque. And you see the chambers, or rather the front of the chambers. We have the oven here, and we have the cave right over there. So that's where a body goes initially. They bake for about a year, well, a year and a day. The extra day is just to show extra respect. And then if you have a second person to die, the family will come and remove that body, put it in an urn, and put the urn downstairs in the cave. Very, very efficient system. I want to show you a grave that's actually collapsed. This is a very old cemetery. Some of these graves are passed from generation, well, all of them are passed from generation to generation, but some of these families actually die out. And if they die out, the city does not have any right to take over that grave for at least 70 years after that family died off. And there's a grave here, if I can find it, that's actually collapsed just last year because the family died out. But you see, all of these graves, or most of them, are above ground. Some of them don't have both chambers, like the little one over there. They just simply use it for a couple of people, a few people there. Let's see if I can find that grave. Maybe they fixed it. I'm a tour guide here in New Orleans. I do a lot of these tours, including the cemetery tour. I used to bring people here in this cemetery. I haven't done it lately. I've been going on to other cemeteries just to mix it up. So I haven't been in this one for about 6 months now. But if I can remember right, it's right here. They cleaned it up. All right. Unfortunately, I cannot show you a good visual of what those chambers used to look like because they cleaned a lot of it, but you can see a little glimpse here. This grave over here, this is about to collapse, and I was talking about this one over here. You could still see a few months ago, 6 months ago, you could still see the chambers all exposed and opened up, but it completely collapsed now. So the city is probably going to take it over and sell it to somebody else, to another family. Here we have the Slark and Letchford, if I remember right. Letchford, yes. Slark and Letchford graves. They're the two most imposing graves in the cemetery. Competing families, importers of coffee from South America. And they were in the same business. They hated each other's guts. And they decided to basically outbuild one another. They hired the same architect, and the guy was in a pickle trying to appease both of them. So he built the graves to be exactly the same height, and he brought the Slark guy, the Slark patriarch, to that gate, showed him the two graves looking this way. His grave looked taller, and then a couple of days later he brought the Letchford guy, the guy whom he built this grave for. He brought him over to that gate, showed him the two graves looking from this side, so his grave looked taller. Smart architect, but I would not want to be that architect to be in that situation. Anyway, this was Cypress Grove Cemetery, and just wanted to show you a little bit about how we bury our dead. Now, by law and tradition, families are not allowed to reopen these graves upstairs, the ovens as we call them, for at least a year and a day after somebody was placed in there, to make sure that body properly cooked in there. You don't want to take your grandma with fresh meat on her, or grandpa. So what happens if 3 people in the same family die within the same year? Well, for that we developed a very snazzy app, and I'm going to show you that app a little bit later. I'll just give you a hint. You see it right behind me. It's not really an app, but it's wall vaults, and you see that they don't have names. It's because they're used for that purpose, to bury somebody in a family that had more than one person die in the same year. They'll place them in there. The family would literally rent that out from the cemetery, place that second person in there. They'll cook in there for their year and a day. After they have properly cooked, the family will remove the first person who died, put them place them in the cave downstairs, away from the oven, and take that second person from the rental one, put them in the cave next to the first person. There's a second reason why some of these are used for, and some of the ones without names. A few of them, and they're all numbered. The cemetery knows which ones they are. A few of them are set aside for the unidentifiable, not as rental for families, but for unidentifiable people. Most of them are homeless. Not all of them, but most of them are. In any case, they're the unidentifiable. And if you're a homeless person and you die in a hurricane, you get shot on the streets, you have no family, no ID on you, no driver's license, nobody knows who you are, nobody claims you, the city will literally peel your body from the streets and dump you into one of these set aside for the homeless, for the unidentifiable, and they're permanent. But the city doesn't care, let's be honest, they don't care too much about these unidentifiable people. So if they get overwhelmed, if there's a second hurricane, let's say 3 years later, and a bunch more homeless people die, if they run out of space inside these vaults for the unidentifiable, to make room for that next person, they'll break through the brick wall in the front, they'll take a broom or a shovel or a 10-foot pole, and will very, very delicately, very carefully shove that person, that first person, all the way to the back. And I said delicately, sarcastically. Basically push them all the way, push their remains, their charred remains by now, push them all the way to the back to make room for the next person, for the next homeless person there. Sometimes there's even a little hole at the bottom, or not at the bottom, but at the other end there, so that the remains of that first person go through that hole all the way to the bottom, sometimes even a couple of feet under. Basically they go through that shaft to make room for the second person. So if anyone here watching my video has heard of that expression, I would not touch that person with a 10-foot pole. Now you know where that comes from. Or the other one, somebody got shafted. Now you know where that comes from. Anyway, a little morbid, but really fascinating in my opinion. So thank you for watching Cypress Grove. This is a city cemetery. It's not Catholic, although the majority of the city is Catholic. So about 75% of the people buried in this cemetery are still Catholic. You see a lot of crosses, but some Protestants, some Jewish people as well, people of all faiths. And this was Cypress Grove. Again, thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, please actually hit that like button, and it would be great if you could also subscribe to my channel if you enjoy these videos. Thanks so much. Have a good one.